Victoria Asher believed that every tragedy in her life began in a blind spot, a moment unseen, a person unobserved, a truth hidden just beyond the edge of her vision. Loss, in her experience, was never sudden. It was always a result of something missed, a detail overlooked, a warning ignored. And so, after enough loss, she eliminated darkness altogether. Her estate in Greenwich, Connecticut, was less a home than a living system of awareness. 47 cameras monitored every corridor, entrance, and shared space. Microphones were embedded invisibly into walls that cost more than most suburban houses. Motion sensors tracked each footstep across marble floors and alerted her phone in real time. The system was elegant, exhaustive, and ruthless. Victoria was not afraid of thieves. She was afraid of people. The last time she trusted someone without proof, she lost everything that mattered. So now, her faith lived in data alone, until the night a janitor walked through her door and never once looked up at the cameras watching him. His name was Daniel Mercer. He came through a staffing agency that specialized in discretion and high-net-worth clients who preferred their employees forgettable. 41 years old, widower, father to a 9-year-old daughter named Sophie. His background check was clean. His references were unremarkable. No criminal history. No financial irregularities. No red flags of any kind. His interview lasted exactly 7 minutes. Victoria had not conducted it herself. Her household manager had, but she watched the recording later as she watched everything. Daniel answered each question with the minimum number of words required. He did not elaborate. He did not volunteer information. He did not ask about the estate, the owner, or the unusual overnight hours. He stated his qualifications, confirmed his availability for the night shift, and waited silently until dismissed. What struck Victoria was not what he said. It was what he did not do. He did not try to impress anyone. He did not attempt rapport. He did not soften his presence with charm or curiosity. He behaved like a man who understood that attention itself could be a liability. The agency had sent him to fill a sudden vacancy. The previous night janitor had quit without notice, citing health concerns related to the overnight hours. Victoria suspected the real reason was the cameras. Some people could not tolerate being watched. Daniel Mercer did not seem to notice them at all. His first shift began at 11 p.m. and ended at 7 a.m. Victoria watched the first hour from her study on the second floor. 3 monitors displayed live feeds of the main corridors, the kitchen, and the east wing. Daniel moved through the house with quiet deliberation. His mop strokes were measured, his footsteps controlled. He wore the agency-issued gray uniform and kept his sleeves rolled to the elbow despite the chill that settled into the house after midnight. There was something almost meditative about the way he worked. No wasted motion. No distractions. Each task received his full attention, whether he was cleaning the marble foyer or the utility closet near the garage. It was as though the work itself deserved respect, regardless of whether anyone was watching. And yet, beneath the calm, Victoria sensed urgency. She noticed at first around 3 a.m. Daniel check his watch. Once, then again. His pace increased almost imperceptibly. Movements became more efficient, stripped of anything unnecessary. The change was subtle enough that a casual observer would have missed it. Victoria was not a casual observer. She had spent 15 years in private equity, building her fortune on the ability to read what lived between words and gestures. Daniel Mercer was hiding something, not with lies or misdirection, but in the way a man hid a wound he did not want touched. He finished his shift 12 minutes early and left through the service entrance without speaking to anyone. The cameras followed him to his car, a 12-year-old Honda Civic with a dent in the rear fender. He sat in the driver's seat for nearly a full minute before starting the engine, head bowed, hands resting on the steering wheel. Victoria watched until his taillights disappeared down the long driveway. Then she rewound the footage and watched his entire shift again. She told herself it was routine, quality control, the same vigilance she applied every aspect of her life. But beneath the justification, she knew the truth. Daniel Mercer had awakened something she had not felt in years. Curiosity. The second night, she watched more closely. She noticed that Daniel never touched anything he did not need to clean. In the library, where first editions worth hundreds of thousands of dollars sat unprotected on open shelves. He dusted only the surfaces. He never reached for a book. In the dining room, where a Tiffany chandelier hung over a table that seated 20, he worked carefully around the crystal, disturbing not a single pendant. Most people, when alone, allowed themselves small liberties. A glance into a drawer, a moment resting in an expensive chair, a touch simply because something beautiful was within reach. Daniel showed none of it. He moved through the house like a guest who understood he had been granted temporary passage and intended to honor it. By the third night, Victoria had begun tracking his patterns. Main foyer, kitchen, first floor corridors. Break at 2:30 a.m., exactly 30 minutes. He sat alone in the staff break room and ate a sandwich brought from home. He never used a stock refrigerator or coffee machine. Precision defined everything he did. The perfection unsettled her. People who appeared flawless were often hiding the most. Transparency was messy. Authenticity had rough edges. Daniel's controlled exterior suggested a man who had learned to master every visible part of himself. The question was why. On the fourth night, Victoria watched in real time, a barely touched glass of wine beside her as Daniel moved through the east wing. He was too careful. That thought repeated itself like a warning. Too careful to ignore. She watched him clean the solarium windows, empty trash bins, replace liners with crisp efficiency. Then he paused outside her private study. A small bronze sculpture stood on a pedestal in the hall, a woman with her arms raised toward the sky. He looked at it for nearly 10 seconds. Then he moved on. Victoria rewound the footage and watched again. There was something in his expression, not desire, not calculation, but recognition. The sculpture had been a gift from her mother, one of the few possessions Victoria had kept after the funeral. She added it to her growing list of observations. The fifth night brought the first deviation. At approximately 4 a.m., Daniel left his assigned route and walked to the far end of the east wing corridor. There, in a gilded frame, hung a portrait of Margaret Ashford, Victoria's mother, painted 3 months before her death. Kind eyes, silver hair, a woman who had trusted the wrong system and paid for it with her life. Daniel stood before the portrait for nearly 2 minutes. Then he spoke. The microphones captured only breath and static, not the words themselves. He had not known he was being watched. Victoria watched the footage 3 times before admitting what she felt. This was no longer vigilance. This was obsession. Over the next 2 weeks, she escalated. Higher resolution cameras, enhanced audio, motion alerts tied directly to her phone. Sleep came in fragments between footage reviews. Meals went untouched. Messages from staff went unanswered. Every night, Daniel returned to the portrait. 90 seconds. For minutes, always silent. Victoria considered installing a camera directly facing it, and stopped herself. She no longer knew why. On the 23rd night, she decided to confront him. Victoria found Daniel in the kitchen at 1 a.m., polishing stainless steel surfaces with methodical care. He looked up as she entered, surprise flickering briefly across his face before settling into polite neutrality. The vast kitchen felt colder with her presence, her footsteps echoing against tile as she approached. She had prepared questions. Careful ones. They vanished the moment he set down his cloth and gave her his full attention. "How are you finding the work?" she asked. "Fine," he said. The house was well maintained. The duties were clear. She asked about the hours, the isolation. He preferred the quiet. About his background, maintenance work, different buildings, honest labor. You could see when something was clean. There was no defensiveness, no explanation beyond what was asked. Standing 3 feet away, Victoria saw details of cameras never captured. The gray at his temples, the calluses on his hands, the way he held himself, ready to yield space. He was tired, not from the hour, but from life. She dismissed him and retreated, unsettled. 12 days later, an alert woke her at 4 a.m. Motion detected in the garage. A pipe had burst outside the guest house. In sub-zero temperatures, damage would be catastrophic. She reached for her phone to call emergency maintenance and froze. Daniel emerged carrying tools from a locked supply room. Bare hands. No coat. He worked for 47 minutes, shutting off water, sealing the rupture, clearing ice. He returned the tools, cleaned the floor, filed no report. Only one sentence reached her through the microphones. "There are things that have to be done right," he said quietly, even when no one knows. 3 weeks later, she confronted him in the East Wing corridor, this time face to face. He told her about his wife, the cancer, the nurse who stayed when no one else did, the kindness that made death less frightening. He had tried to find her afterward, failed until 6 months ago. A photograph, a foundation event, a familiar face behind Victoria Ashford's name. He had taken the job not to take anything, only to be near gratitude. Victoria asked a question that had been building inside her. "Have you seen enough to trust me?" He returned it without hesitation. She had. The cameras showed her everything. But they never taught her trust. That choice was hers. Over the next month, she dismantled the surveillance system piece by piece. Staff areas first, then audio, then motion sensors. Each removal brought vertigo and relief. Daniel remained. They spoke. They shared coffee. She learned about Sophie, about grief, about choosing presence over protection. "You can't watch your way to safety," Daniel told her. "You can only live your way there." 3 months later, she offered him a new role, Director of Household Well-Being. Trust formalized. His first act was a children's education fund. His second, a family emergency policy. His third was removing the final camera from the East Wing corridor. Victoria watched him box it with the others. "No," she said when he asked if she regretted it. The house grew quieter, kinder. Sophie chased butterflies in the garden. And Victoria finally slept, without monitors, without fear, knowing that the most important things in life were never meant to be watched at all.